So welcome to the Scottish meeting on volunteering with BOHS. Many of you know that I've kind of volunteered myself as part of the board, as a regional organiser and on the international committee. But we're going to talk today about various aspects of volunteering with BOHS, and we're going to start with Amanda. So if I can pass over to you, Amanda, on your experiences of volunteering, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thanks, Helen. Can I just check that you can hear me okay first?
Yes, we can.
Brilliant. Okay, thanks very much and good afternoon, everybody. So my volunteering journey with BOHS began about 7 years ago, and I was just your regular occupational hygienist working on a large petrochemical site, doing occupationally hygiene things, really. And then in the spring of 2015, I attended the BOHS hosted IOHA conference in London. And I heard a talk about something called Breathe Freely, presented by a chap called Mike Slater. No, not that Mike Slater, the other one. There we go. And I was really impressed listening to the talk, because this campaign was taking the information and help out to the industry, to the managers, supervisors and workforce via roadshows. So after the talk, I spoke to Mike. Now, be careful if you speak to Mike. I ended up agreeing to review and write some of the silica and cost guidance and the audit materials. I then seemed to end up on the Breathe Freely steering team as well. And then we were really kind of off and running. So with Breathe Freely, I can't actually remember all of the talks that I was invited to give, but I'll just mention a couple of them here. So I went to Leeds to give a presentation at the Leeds Royal Armouries Museum. A lovely place to visit and a great chance to influence many who had never heard of occupational hygiene. The HSE director for the Painting and Building Maintenance Group, Bell, heard one of my talks, and he invited me to Crewe to their senior management event. That was a nice hotel and a fancy dinner, but mostly the chance to influence their company leadership on health issues pertinent to their operations. So already volunteering was taking me well beyond my normal sphere of influence. Sometime later, I was in Glasgow sorting out my son's university accommodation when I got a call from Mike. He had this crazy idea that I should be on the BOHS board. So here I am, bottom right. So now I go to Derby quite a lot, but more importantly, I get to rub shoulders with an amazing bunch of people, both at head office and fellow board members, giving me a really powerful network for support and advice. And as treasurer, I also have a detailed insight into how BOHS operates. So I've tried to sum up my volunteering experience in 3 words, and here they are. Affirming. I don't work in the construction industry, so presenting materials out with my industry to large groups of people put me outside my comfort zone, as well as being on the board. But I've had lots of positive feedback from talks and during my time on the board I feel I'm really making an important contribution, and I feel really valued, supported. For a large part of my career, I have been the only hygienist on site. I think this is true for many others. And it's hugely valuable to build a network of professionals in my own and other industries. And volunteering has helped immensely in this. And finally, excited. I honestly don't think there's been a better time to get involved with BOHS. We have a really committed head office team, a highly competent and dynamic CEO, and health is on the public and workplace agenda like never before. So I can't recommend getting involved in volunteering with BOHS highly enough. You don't have to give talks or be on the board. There are lots of different opportunities. And big or small, I can guarantee you will definitely not regret it. So, volunteering with BOHS, where will it take you? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Amanda. That was great. So I guess Amanda's kind of told a journey about how we might typically think that people get asked to volunteer within BOHS. But what we're going to do now is hand over to David, and he's going to actually take us through a different way of volunteering through BOHS. Over to you, David.
Thank you, Helen. Hopefully some slide or a picture will appear shortly and someone will nod or wave their hand or do something to tell me that it's working.
Yep, you're all good.
Brilliant, fantastic. So yeah, as Helen said, my story is a little bit different in terms of volunteering and what I've done within the BOHS. So I'm a hygienist, been a hygienist for 12 years. I've used BOHS guidance, I've used BOHS tools, BOHS advice, all the various things they put out. But I've never really thought of myself as being senior enough or knowledgeable enough to be able to do anything myself, really, or to contribute to it in any way. Oh, I've just had an error pop up. We'll just try that again. Hopefully it will now once again appear. So as I was saying, I've never really thought I was I always thought it came from like 30-year researchers and all the rest of it. And then COVID hit. And like everyone else, I think pretty much everyone in our industry has been affected by COVID in some way professionally, has been thrown in at various deep ends of various pools, trying to gather guidance or intelligence or what to do about things we've never really thought about before. And some of my work looked at ventilation. Really, really complex. When it was passed over to me, I need to do a bit of work myself so that I could understand it. And all of my volunteer stuff started from work that I kind of did for me and no one else really. And then someone said that I was working with, well, that might be useful to someone else. They took it and they said they found it useful. I was still a little bit like, well, at this point, it's an Excel spreadsheet buried in a folder that isn't very pretty to look at. It doesn't really do much. It condenses some information for me and makes it understandable to me. I don't really think anyone else would get it. But like a good colleague, she pushed and continued to push until I agreed. And we sent it across to the BOHS and said, any good? You like it? Would it be useful? And they came back and said, well, yeah, we do quite like that. We think you might have a use for it, which was a big shock to me. I've never really done anything like it before. And the BOHS then kind of swung into action for me, really, and gave me access to people who I'd never thought I'd have access before. helped me understand how these kind of things work. Spoke to groups that I'd never think I'd ever speak to, or be able to speak to. It was really, really good process, for something that I kind of thought I'd just done for me in the background. And while I was going through it, didn't really think I was getting anything out of it, if I'm being honest. Because you're kind of in the mix with it. You're trying to do a bit of this and a bit of that, and your day job. I didn't really think, well, I'm not going to get anything out of this. But towards the end, you kind of look back and think, well, actually, with the help of the BOHS, I've just delivered a national project that takes the stuff that I had, the information that I'd built, and delivered it on a national scale. It meant I could access these really highfalutin people that I always thought would never listen to anything, a word that I've got to say, but they did listen. And it was nice to be able to sit in, it wasn't rooms because, COVID, but in various Teams meetings and Teams chats about, oh, well, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Accessing people with incredible knowledge to be able to improve my own and building relationships with these people. And then the other thing that was quite shocking, really, was getting access to organisations that I was privileged enough to give a presentation to a SAGE subcommittee. And it was like, well, hang on a minute, I'm just a little hygienist and I'm presenting things to people with very long lists of letters after their names. And it was a really, really kind of privileged opportunity to be able to do that. And that wouldn't have happened without kind of volunteering and offering up this kind of thing. So my kind of last slide is just to tell everyone to kind of dream big. We kind of think that what we do, I used to be a consultant, I used to work on sites, and you kind of think, oh, well, no one's really interested in this little piece of work that I've done. And I've only really done it because there was nothing else out there. But if you've done a piece of work because there's nothing else out there, there's probably other people that are struggling with it. There are probably other people that are kind of going, oh, I really wish there was a piece of guidance on this. And if you've already done it, it'd be brilliant for you to be able to offer that up to the BOHS and go through that kind of same similar process and get your work on a national scale. And rather than your work maybe helping your company or your clients, or maybe you've got an international company you work for, maybe it helps internationally, but your work could actually help all the workplaces in Great Britain, and possibly further afield as well. So I'll end on the fact that anyone can do this. It doesn't matter if you are a student member of the BOHS or if you are a chartered fellow with 45 years experience. There is no difference. If you've got an idea, if you see a gap and you can fill that gap and you fill it, offer it up to the BOHS. They might say, actually, it doesn't really fit with us at the moment. Or they might say, oh, that's a brilliant idea. We've never thought of that. And then we can pick it up and run with it and support it and help the entire kind of country's workplaces. So that's kind of me, Helen, if that's okay.
Great, thanks, David. So both David and Amanda have given us different journeys into their sort of volunteering experiences and their different roles within volunteering. So I guess what we'd like to do now is open up the floor for any questions and any queries that people have got. So I don't know if anyone's got anything they want to ask David or Amanda, or want to just bring to the floor. So I think we did have a couple of questions just come in earlier. Just trying to find them. Oh, I can see someone's typing. I'll just let them finish. Okay, so how do you apply to be a volunteer? Shani, that's maybe one for you.
Yeah, sure. So,
Oh, I forgot. Sorry, Shane, you've got a slice to give as well, haven't you?
I have, yeah.
I forgot.
That is covered in my presentation. I don't know if you want me to do that
Yes,
first before we go to the questions.
Sorry, yes, I'll hand over to Shane to do her slides. Thanks.
Cool. That's okay. Just bear with me while I put them
Despite
on
all the technical practices.
Oh, I'm having the same problem now, getting the slides open. You can see those now, can't you? Can you hear me okay, Helen? Can I just confirm?
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks, Phoebe.
So
Sorry
yeah,
about
so
that.
hi everyone. That's okay. Hi everyone. I'm Shani Jackson and I work for BOHS. I'm the head of member engagement. And I think I work in a really privileged position because I often work with people like Amanda and David on various different volunteering activities. So I see how much they gain from their experiences of volunteering, but I also see how much the society gains as well. So yes, the society does have staff. We have about 22 staff who, the way I would describe it is that they run the machinery of the society. They run the machinery of the examining body or of the membership side of things. But what members do is they oversee the governance of the society, or they help to set the direction and the strategy. They input in terms of creating technical content, technical guidance, creating technical presentations. And the society gains hugely from that activity because it helps us to broaden our reach in terms of worker health protection. So we actually have about 150 of our members who regularly volunteer, and many, many more than that who kind of do one-off volunteering activities for the society. So it's really great to kind of see that balance between the win-win situation, the society benefiting and also the individuals. I've put a few things on the slides there that I think are really good reasons to volunteer, and it's great that Amanda and David mentioned many of these. So they talked about building a network of contacts, and it was great to hear Amanda talk about how you acquire one contact and they introduce you to another group of people and another group of people, and before you know it, you get kind of connected in all sorts of different spaces. So that's a story we hear a lot from volunteers. Acquiring technical knowledge, so working with people who've got different areas of expertise, different sets of experiences, and developing new skills. You know, we have volunteers that do things that they just don't get the opportunity to do in their day jobs. So things like presenting, public speaking, even running committees or managing different projects. It's something that some people just don't have the access to do. And there's also kind of the motivational factor of wanting to contribute to the society, wanting to have a bigger impact on worker health protection. So they're all the reasons to volunteer. On the next slide, I've wanted to share with you the kind of different kinds of roles that we have available. And these are the categories of different volunteer roles, that we've kind of grouped everything into these categories. So I want to just take a moment to talk about some of these, because I think some of these are things that many members don't think about. They're not the obvious volunteer roles that you might hear about frequently. Supporter is the first one on the list, and that's a great role for everybody. It's not a role that you need to apply for. It's a role that actually many members already do. It's simply supporting BOHS, following the social media, keeping up to date with the exposure magazine and the e-bulletins, and then sharing that information when there's a possibility or an opportunity within your day-to-day work. So many people are doing that already, and it's a great place to start with volunteering. Ambassadors are kind of one step up from that. So an ambassador might do all of the activities of a supporter, but they might also present at various different events on behalf of BOHS. The role that Amanda described, which was the Breathe Freely champion, is a really good example of an ambassador role. There are also technical authors, promotional authors, presenters who put together guidance, write articles on behalf of the society. They'll put together presentations, they'll speak at events or speak at BOHS conferences themselves. So kind of the kind of examples that David was talking about. And there's lots of opportunities to do that. And many people will be aware of the abstract processes as being a route into getting a spot as a presenter at one of the BOHS conferences. There are also coordinator roles. So a really good example of that is the regional coordinator. Just like Helen on this webinar, she takes responsibility for a particular region and creates a programme of events for members in that area. There are also lots of committees and working groups at BOHS. So being a chair or a committee member or a working group member is also a possibility. And some of those are long-term roles. Some of them are more short-term roles, depending on the nature of the group. And then there are also board members and office holders. These are the elected roles. So as members, you'll see the emails come out each year for elections. These are the roles that often get the most kind of publicity, that people think most of when we talk about volunteering. But actually, volunteering goes far beyond these kind of elected roles. And then lastly on that list is external representatives. So there are many BOHS members who sit on committees outside of BOHS and contribute to different committees or groups. And in doing that, they represent BOHS, or they feed that information back into the society to kind of help to close the loop and make sure that we're all working towards the same purpose. So hopefully from that list, you see that there's a really huge array of different types of roles with different kind of lengths of commitment and different types of commitment. So the society is working on volunteering as a topic. We've recognised how important and critical it is for the running of the society. So there's lots of things that we're currently doing to help improve the way that volunteering works. One of the things that's in the pipeline is the development of a competency framework for the profession. And we think this will be a really important tool for members in the future, because it will become like a self-assessment tool where members can assess areas that they feel they might wish to develop. And it might be that volunteering is a way of addressing those areas for development. So competency framework might well become a really important tool in self-assessment and planning a volunteering journey. We're also working on putting more information about volunteering on the website. One thing that we want to do shortly is make sure that there's a library of role descriptions, so that every single role that we've mentioned has a document, and that document is on the website, so that people can see what roles are available at any time, rather than purely when they become vacant and they're advertised. We're also planning on putting more information about volunteering activities into the member records, so that it links to CPD, and so that members have got a record of kind of when they've carried out different roles during their time as being a member. So if you're looking for roles and you're interested in becoming a volunteer, the best place to kind of keep an eye on is actually the e-news, the email that comes out regularly. We'll highlight in that email any roles that are vacant, and in there will be a link through to the member portal. And specifically on the member opportunities page, which is shown on the slide, there'll be a list of any roles that are currently vacant. There'll be a link to the role description, and there'll also be an explanation about how to apply. We've purposefully made the application process really short, because we don't want people having to fill in lengthy applications. So the application form it literally just asks for your name and for you to attach a CV or a LinkedIn profile, and to add any notes that you think would be relevant for the role. So it's a really, really quick process. And depending on the nature of the role, we would select for either head office would make a selection, or the committee that's relevant would make a selection, and we would let people know as soon as we could. I thought this would be a good opportunity to flag to you any roles that we've got coming up that are soon to be advertised, just in case there's anyone on the webinar who is actually looking for a specific opportunity. So this is a list of the roles that I think will be advertised in the next few weeks. The first one is that we're going to be advertising for a regional coordinator for the East Anglia region. So that would be relevant for anyone who works or lives in East Anglia. It's a fairly long-term role. We ask for a couple of years commitment, and that role is about organising webinars for people in that region, and also looking for kind of local collaborations, local opportunities to help kind of progress the kind of put occupational hygiene on the agenda for the area, really. The next role that I think will be coming up shortly will be somebody to join the annual conference organising committee. So that's a committee of 3 people who organise the BOHS annual conference, and then it's a 3-year commitment, and in the last year of that role you become the chair of that committee. So it's quite a high profile role, and there are benefits to that role in terms of free conference attendance, and also having access to a huge network of experts and various different people that speak at those conferences. So that's usually a very popular role, and yeah, so we'll be looking for someone to do that role over the next few weeks. And then we're also going to be looking to set up an expert group on metalworking fluids to create some documentation for both occupational hygienists, but also for kind of machine users. So we're going to be setting up a working group of subject matter experts and authors to create that documentation. So if that's something that interests you, again, we'll be advertising that in the coming weeks. And so please do click that link and put your application in for that one. Just before I go, I think it would be wrong of me to not use this opportunity to say a huge thanks to everyone that has volunteered for the Society. There are so many people, and I can see so many names on the webinar today, that have given up their time and energy to help the Society. And it really does make a huge difference. We're always astounded by how much time and energy people are willing to give, but we are truly grateful, and thank you very much. Thank you, Helen.
Thanks, Janie. So I think that's given us a really good overview of kind of different roles that are available and sort of how different ways to apply for them. So the lady or person who is South Cumbria and North Lancashire branch, does that answer your question for how to apply for a volunteer? Yep, that's good. Perfect. I noticed that Mary says she's going to volunteer for the MWF expert group.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mary. That's brilliant.
Has anyone else got any questions or anything else they want to discuss? I've got a couple that have come in. So what's the volunteering selection feedback process like? That's probably a question for yourself, Shani.
Yeah, sure. So in the past, we've had some feedback really that it's been a little bit inconsistent. So it's something we've been really working hard on lately. What a volunteer can expect is if they apply for a role through one of the adverts that's in the e-news, that we will get back to them as soon as we can. We don't take a long time to go through this, but we'll get back to them. If someone's successful, we'll let them know straight away, and then we'll send them a volunteer agreement, which is kind of like just a document that highlights some of our policies and how we work and the nature of the relationship, and then we'll give them access to an induction. And if someone hasn't been successful, we usually take the approach of letting them know why, but also kind of highlighting any other volunteer roles. Sometimes it's literally a case that there's just one role and there might be 2-3 applicants, so we have to pick somebody. But we usually take the approach of trying to work with that person to see if there's anything else that is similar or suitable for them.
Great, thanks, Shani. Anyone from the floor got any questions? Oh, there's one just come in. How easy is it to volunteer if you live overseas?
Yeah, I'll answer that as well, Helen, if that's okay. We do have some volunteers that live overseas. I think it works for some roles and not others. So there are roles which are a little bit like as David described, where it's predominantly based over Teams and it's about having meetings and sharing documentation and working on documentation. So that kind of role would be ideal for somebody who lived overseas and had a particular area of expertise to contribute. There are other roles which demand attendance at particular meetings, and I'm afraid our expense budget doesn't stretch as far as kind of air flights. Amanda is very pleased I've said that, being the treasurer. So there are certain roles that it wouldn't be appropriate, but we try to make that clear in the job description so that it's clear whether it needs to be someone based in the UK or it can be open to all members. But it's normally fairly obvious from the role description the kind of engagement that role will need and whether it's possible.
That's great. Thanks, Shani.
Helen, I just noticed that Dougie has his hand up.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, mention that.
Dougie, do you want to go ahead? Sorry.
Yep. Thanks, Helen. Thanks, Wendy, for spotting that. It's really just a bit of an observation, because I've been sitting in the sidelines for a while. It's an age thing, comes to us all. So when I've been involved in the past, one of the things that has become apparent, and some of the questions I sometimes get asked by other members is, oh yeah, we know about all these committees, and it'd be nice to think about maybe volunteering for one, and then they see them coming up, but they're not really fully aware of what the committee's roles or the volunteering bits actually are. For example, one that's kind of close to my heart is education and the development of both postgraduate qualifications in occupational hygiene, which have withered and almost died in recent years, and also the development from senior school years onwards into the professional life that youngsters have. Now, if that process was, well, I know there is reports done for the board, for each of the board meetings from the chairs of these committees, but I personally feel there would be more encouragement if each of those committees had, you know, a bit of a better profile, even on the BOHS website. I know there is information there, but sometimes it's not easy to find. So if there was like a committee tree and a section just with the trees there, and a click to members to go in and look to see the work of those committees, it might whet the appetite of someone that is passionate about a particular subject. For example, the development of young people into our profession, to stop the membership at a professional level stagnating and growing in the way that IOSH did 10 years ago when they, you know, milked the Royal Charter, you know, over a number of years. And I think Helen will be able to, you know, relate to that. So that it's really just an observation for those that are not so much on the call here, but maybe something for BOHS to look how to better promote the success of volunteering in, you know, the day-to-day basis and how it's presented through the website.
That's great. Thanks, Dougie. Yeah, some good points there. Any other questions from the floor? Oh, I've got one here from Gordon. If you volunteer as a mentor, as he does, your mentees can come from anywhere, literally. There is no reason why a mentor cannot be from overseas. So, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, thanks, Gordon. Another one that we've got to come in. Do I need to wait until I'm approached for a volunteering role? So I guess David's kind of shown us that you don't have to. And from the list that Shane has given us on the website, then there's positions come up quite regularly. So just keep an eye out for those. Anyone else got any questions? Oh, Dougie again. Go ahead, Dougie.
Yeah, me again, just on that point. I personally feel that anyone that wants to volunteer to promote and develop the occupational hygiene elements of BOHS, because there's the learner part as well, they shouldn't wait for a volunteering opportunity to come up. If they look at the CPD profile and where you get CPD points for, you don't need to wait to become directly involved at the invitation of BOHS. You can go out on your own, promote the profession, get people involved, and by doing so, encourage them. And you'll get CPD points for that if you structure it properly and read what the CPD framework is all about. So that's maybe something that people could think about as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thanks, Dougie. And I guess coming back to what Shani was saying earlier about being a supporter, you know, you can sort of volunteer in that sense and promote the society and BOHS as an organisation and as an occupation just by retweeting and following things. So we've got another question come in. How long do I need to commit to volunteering for? Do you want to take that one up, Shani?
Yeah, can do. Yeah. So that should be set out in the role description. So some roles are short term. So if it's related to like a project or the creation of a particular set of guidance, it might be something like a few months. Whereas some roles, for example, like office holders for the board, they come with a 3-year term. So the answer to that question really depends on the role. We often get people worried about volunteering because they worry about long-term commitment, but we do have conversations with people all the time where their availability changes. So for example, they might become involved in a project and then something changes at work, they take on extra responsibility, for example, and they suddenly find themselves in a situation where they can't commit as much time. So we try to be as flexible as we can, and we do understand that happens. So we're always kind of shuffling things around, introducing new people into groups to cover other people. So that's kind of a fairly normal way of working, and it isn't something that should put people off, that they're worried about whether they can commit long term.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Shani. So I got one from Alex here as well. If you're already volunteering to assist a young occupational hygienist development, but you're not actually registered via the BHS, I'm guessing that's via the mentoring scheme, Would you recommend touching base with BOHS to ensure the activity is recorded?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I mean, it's great for us to kind of have an overview of all the different activities that are going on. We report that information anyway to the Charity Commission every year. We let them know how many people are doing voluntary work for the society, and exactly the point that Dougie made is we sometimes want to shout about it and put that information in a exposure or mention it on the website. So it's really important that yeah, you do share that information with us, so we have that oversight of what's going on.
Perfect, thanks. Anything that anyone else would like to raise? Or they want more information about? We had another volunteer for the metalworking floors. It was Carol Steen. Anything anyone else wants to say? Okay, well, I think that's been a great overview in volunteer. Oh, I've got someone else is typing just now. Oh, that's just thank you. So I think that's been a great overview in terms of giving us how there's different ways of getting into volunteering, how we can actually different roles that we can take on, different time commitments, different levels of time allocated to volunteering. And also that if we do commit, we're not kind of committed for life. There is a way out afterwards. So I'd just like to say thank you to our three speakers today, and apologies again to Shani for forgetting about you. And I guess if anyone wants to know more about volunteering or needs more information on any of the roles that are coming up, then I guess just get in touch with the membership team. Is that right, Shani? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else left to follow up with. So I'd just like to say thanks again to our speakers, and thank you all for you to attending and making the meeting happen, because without you there isn't an audience to present to. So thank you for coming. And yes, I guess I'll see you at the next meeting. Thanks very much.